if we find that we need to go into an additional school year there. So again, it's weighing some decent, appreciable money, and I'm not scoffing at the amount that's going to be required, but an appreciable amount of money up front versus an awful lot of money, on the backside to a facility that we are not certain that we can ever use in the future. So with that, thank you, and I will be in touch, and I appreciate all the work everyone here is doing.
Would anybody here not be able to attend a meeting next week with the Hanson Board of Selectmen? We should find that out now, just to...
Everybody available next week if we have to?
Like a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, because, Monday's Christmas, Tuesday's the day.
I'm away next week. Not until the end of the week will I be around.
Wednesday.
What, Ally?
I'm away
January 2nd.
till Thursday.
That would bring
Ally might not be able to, but I'm sure some of the other members that are not here.
That's what I mean, just to find out.
it might work.
And again, I need to speak to my board in terms of their availability, and we don't obviously necessarily need to have it on a Tuesday night. As a matter of fact, it may not make sense for next Tuesday since it's a day after Christmas. We can meet, as I'm sure this board can meet, at any time, at any place. So
After you discuss also with town council and what's going on, you might come up with a different timeline, Mike.
yeah.
So it's all hypothetical at the present time.
Yes.
You've got to do some more research. If you stay in touch with me, I'll stay in touch with the committee.
We'll know what's up.
Okay, thank you.
We will do what we need to do as appropriate and as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
That's what I wanted to find out now.
Hi. I just had a couple questions, and unfortunately, I probably am not going to be able to stick around for the answers. They're more like, when we meet, could we think about these things? Could you guys, I'm sure you've got the information, and if you could just make it available to us. So total cost to Hanson, because of course that's what I care about, but I do care about the total cost.
I have that right now.
Pardon?
I have that right now.
All right, great. And what's Plan B? If we are able to do a special town meeting and it doesn't pass, I know we don't like to dwell in the Plan B world, but just wondering, like, what is Plan B if Whitman doesn't pass it, or Hanson doesn't pass it, or both of us don't pass it? And have we had conversations with Whitman about funding as well? And are they
Yes.
thinking about a special town meeting too?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously, we can't vote on any of that tonight because, as he said, it's not on our agenda, but we're definitely, it is in the forefront of our minds, but between now and when we actually can do something about it, there might be a little bit of a lag time. And also, is there a way we can get a firm timeline on, and I know this is all contingent, but if you play it out, if we are able to go with a special town meeting in February, what does that look like for the timeline? Does the timeline stay the same but just condensed, and now Ernie and his guys have got to do more in that condensed timeline, or does that kick it out a little bit and looks like it's getting done later? And then last but not least, cost versus benefit. So if I'm a taxpayer and you're coming to me and you're saying, I want, and I'm making this amount up, 500-something thousand in Hanson, okay?
555,000.
Okay, great. So I wasn't too far off, 10% off. So if you come to me and you say, I want 550,000 to do this, versus if we stay in the McQuon building, here's the things we're going to be looking at, and here's what it's, and I know we can't, none of us have got a crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen with the heating system or electrical. Those are sort of, those are wild cards. But some of the other things that we, might cost us money for staying there, for instance, obviously we're going to have to keep janitorial services and all that type of stuff. So I know that's a lot.
No, but we have those numbers.
Okay.
We've
I knew
really
you
done
guys
that.
did,
We've
and
already
maybe
done
you've even
that
made them
work.
available to Mike, and he just hasn't had a chance to.
Yeah. Well, what precipitated all of this, Laura, was really last February when we met with Capital in Hanson and said it's at least $5 million just to make McQuon School a viable learning environment for staff and students.
Right.
And we got absolutely no encouragement that kind of money was going to be available to do that. And we've been trying to get money for just an engineering study to get a better sense of what it would take. The biggest concern at McQuon School is there is no sprinkler system. To try to put one in would require moving the ceiling, which is why when this was part of a building project, they said
Required, because of the fact that it's
It's
grandfathered.
grandfathered in, but if
But
you
just because
start-
it's not required doesn't mean you'd feel safe with your child being there with no fire sprinklers, so.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern is the repairs. We don't really know because you need an engineering study. When we're doing the original study, the architects we were using said, look, this is so costly, we're just going to recommend you don't renovate this building. So it's expensive, we know that.
Yep,
And we also know that ongoing costs, a year ago, August of 16, the boys' bathroom on the second floor leaked into the boys' bathroom on the first floor, which was, what, $20,000 expense, or $23,000 expense, completely unanticipated, but had to be done immediately because it was stinky,
Right.
number one, and you couldn't start school. So this is the problem. Those things just keep happening.
Right, I know it's being held together with chewing gum and baling wire.
But,
to some
I think
extent right
you
now.
go there and it looks okay.
Yep.
And that's, that's commendable to Ernie and his staff and to the staff at McQuon School, that it doesn't look terrible, and I think that's good. It shows that in spite of that, every effort's been made to create a good learning environment.
And I think one of the other questions that I've heard from some constituents is, well, why do we have to do this whole thing at the high school? It's our best school, we're mucking up our best school and all of that. And I know that you're doing things like a school within a school so that if it ever needed to be deconstructed, it could be done so with very little.
It wouldn't take too much to
Yeah.
reverse it, but I think the other reason is that because this is a newer building, you're not going to hit asbestos. You're not going to run into PCBs. None of those things are here because this is a post-asbestos building. One of the issues we looked at, possibly the Duval School. Duval School, part of it's new, part of it isn't, and when we looked at that, you don't know exactly what you're going to hit. This is the concern that came up about Indian Head. We already know when Indian Head was renovated in the late 1990s, there were a whole lot of surprises there. That people hadn't anticipated. So
Okay, so that was one of the other questions we got is, well, can we move it to one of the Whitman schools? Is there excess capacity somewhere else? And I know that you guys have looked at this. I guess I'm just saying maybe
Sure.
we need to get the word out a little bit more about that process.
Right, and the bottom line is, in order to make this move, there is a substantially separate special education program housed at McQuon and at Indian Head. So space is needed for that because when you bring K-2 into the Indian Head building, that space is no longer available. So that program needs to go somewhere, and it's been at Duval School before, and it will probably go to Duval School again, but that still needs 5 classroom spaces for the preschool. So it's all trying to make it work and trying to be as cost-effective as possible.
Well, I really appreciate everybody's efforts. I'm sorry to ask a million questions and then run, but
It's a big deal.
it is a big deal, and it is a lot of money. I know it could be more, if it was some other scenario, and it's certainly not what we were looking at for the new schools. But I think we just want to make sure that if we do go to special town meeting, that we've got a good case and that
Right.
we've really kicked the tires, as I know you guys have, but that we've got a line of sight for people to see that you've kicked the tires and that they can say, okay, if I were doing this, these are all the things I would have done. They've done all those things too, which I know you have, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that the word is getting out there.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Laura, just to bring it on the McQuon, there is sort of a number you can go by. In the last 3 years, we've spent $554,781 to keep that open so we can keep it going.
Yep.
That equates to $185,000 a year, give or
Is
take
that
a
just in
little.
maintenance costs? That doesn't include electricity and heat?
No, that's just
Yep.
stuff.
Repairs to keep it going.
Yep, okay, so if you tag on the,
The capital items that we've come
Yep.
to you over the last 3 years for, that's what that.
but if you tack on utilities and all
Oh,
that,
that's a whole different.
That's
Yep.
a different cost.
okay.
And that cost is going to go away, obviously, if we close that building. So the cost savings that the district is going to see and the town's going to see, because ultimately, the town is the district.
It's all the same money.
It's all the same money. It's only coming out of Whitman-Hanson. It's not
one
like.
pocket or the other.
It comes out of one
Yeah.
pot. It's just how you break it down. So ultimately, if the district saves money, the town saves money.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Any more questions about McQuon pre-K move to the high school before I go to McQuon K2 to Indian Head?
already, you kind of know my spiel, so I wanted to just kind of say it to everyone. My name is Danielle Sheehan, I am from Hanson. I just have concerns over this whole wing here, and that we, based on numbers, Ruth, you've given me, we're maxing out schools. So I know you keep saying declining enrollment, declining enrollment. What happens when the swing goes the other way? Because your numbers here, actually, you've told me next year, 28 out of 27 classrooms. So I know there's a mathematical
I did
error
it
there
backwards. It
somewhere,
should be
fine.
27 out of 20,
But
27 out of 28, yeah.
You have Indian Head, 24 out of 25 classrooms will be used.
That's
Duval, 24 out of 24.
Yeah.
Conley, 27 out of 27. And Hanson Middle, 25 out of 25. So long-term, what happens when this swing changes and where our enrollment is back up? We have nothing. We have.
Chad? Chad's my enrollment expert, yeah.
Based on the enrollment projections for next year, the district is looking
Talking 510.
Okay.
Yeah, but you
So
can do that. NESDEC will do that for you. I mean, they're-
So next year is estimated to be minus 120 some odd students.
Yeah.
But then if you keep going out, if you look at our enrollment numbers in the lower levels, they're in the 60 to 80 range, whereas in the higher levels, starting from 5th up to 12, they're in much higher numbers.
Yeah.
So they're in the hundreds. So as the hundreds start going off and graduating and moving into the higher levels in the high school and out, all you're getting is small classes coming through.
How
And that's
do you-
projected all the way out.
How do you project that, though, based on, obviously, population in Hanson does tend to run, I believe, on the older side? Those people will eventually move out. Young families hopefully move in. You don't know those numbers.
You can only project so far, but
Right.
the next step you go towards is birth rates in the towns. So the only people that live there, like birth rates, what those kids' ages are.
Right.
And then you kind of just project what those are. I mean, in order to get a scientific estimation, you have to use like a company like NESDEC
will
that
do it,
would
yeah.
Right.
estimate it out, but
I'm just,
Yeah.
want people to keep that in mind, that this solution eventually will be outdated as well, and then what are we
Sure,
going
that's
to
true.
do?
That's what happens.
I'm not sure, again, with this, I know, the huge, it used to be the library at Duval when I went there. Why can't that be broken up into other classrooms? If we're short one classroom to move these to Duval, when Olivia went to preschool, it was a lottery-based program. Do we go by that? Why can't this district learn to live within its means as its taxpayers have to live within its means? We have X amount of money, and that's what we have to play with. This is where that's all you have to play with. This is the first I had heard that you have actual costs for this project, so I agree with Laura. The sooner you get those out there, I was under the impression it was still kind of estimates, that there isn't a full total cost yet to that. So the more information you put out there, the better off you'll be. But again, I think Duval, if you're one classroom short, we seem to be putting the cart before the horse, and that you don't even have funding yet. We're already doing major construction.
We haven't done one bit of major construction at all.
We're moving technology classrooms around.
That has not happened.
No?
No, nothing has happened. That's
Okay.
why we're here this evening,
Over
Danielle.
Christmas vacation, though, was there not plans to
Nothing
start that?
is
Okay.
going to
My
happen until the
misunderstanding
school
then.
committee meets tonight and determines how we're going to move forward.
Okay, my
It's irresponsible to do it any other way.
Okay, I was misunderstood from the Board of Selectmen meeting that I watched a few weeks ago, that stuff was in plan
Don't have
to
money
do
in the
during
bank, you
vacation.
can't do it.
Okay. Again, just I think we're trying to do square peg, round hole. It doesn't fit. The whole drop-off, I don't know how many of you have ever done it, but I've done it at McQuon, I've done it at Indian Head, and I've done it at Duval. Drop-off is a horrible process when you're letting your kid come out. I believe this process is the teachers are going to get the kids. I don't know where they go. Do you hold on to 3 kids as you run out to a car to get another one? It's antiquated. I'm not sure that process has completely been thought through correctly, and I have to agree with my mother. Another external door when there's one right down the hallway. When we've just done all of this to Hanson Middle and Whitman Middle for security reasons, we're now just put an outside door that people are going to have access to. I know it's a card or whatever, but it still just doesn't make sense that we have all this security in these schools, but not at that door for our smallest children. So, just my 2 points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to McQuon, K2 to Indian Head. Same type of problem, moving company and crate rentals, library and administrative office move, retrofitting classrooms for extra space or additional space, 3 of them, retrofitting new bathrooms that requires plumbing, electrical, sprinklers, ceilings, tiles, ventilation, fire alarms, and concrete work. 1 classroom is being split into 2 larger bathrooms, food service freezer, additional day for staff to move into Indian Head, 23 of them, technology equipment removal and reinstallation, fencing around Indian Head play area, pod rentals, and final cleanup. And the price tag for that was $332,568. Questions? Anyone? The next one is Indian Head Grade 5 to Hanson Middle. Moving company and crate rentals, an additional day for staff to move to Hanson Middle. That's probably the least, it's $875 for that move. I believe that we had talked about no matter what happens, that move is probably going to happen anyway. So no matter what happens with the financial piece of it, that move is probably going to happen. Any questions? Beth?
Kind of more of a statement, and I know the 5th grade teachers who are planning on moving will be very happy to hear that, because, you know, they have it in their heads that they're moving, and they're kind of like all planned for it. So it's nice to hear that that looks like that's a go anyway, because I know Bill has worked really hard on scheduling and everything already for that, and it's the least cost amount for anybody. So it would be great, you know, that I can go back and tell the 5th grade teachers that it looks like it's a go for you guys. You know, relax. Plus, it leaves more room. You know, I talked to Ruth earlier, it leaves more room if you get rid of, you know, move the 5th grade teachers over. Now you have that extra space that you can now work to retrofit and everything else, that you can move classrooms. So, you know, I think that, you know, on behalf of the teachers, they appreciate that part anyway. We'd like to see the whole thing done, because everybody was kind of planning on that, but it's nice to hear at least that part is going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Hi, Jamie Lacey. I live on Lakeside Road. I have a 4th grader that would be moving up to 5th grade next year, and I have some friends and I that are a little concerned with, have we planned what may be offered for after-school care for our young children, that they're going to be getting out of school a lot earlier than what they would have if they stayed at Indian Head. Is there any kind of plan as far as getting them back to Indian Head for maybe an after-school care program, or will they be allowed to
I think there's certainly a way we can work that out with the Old Colony Y. They've been partners of ours for over 20 years and very flexible. So that's absolutely something we'll work on.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last, McQuon and Indian Head SPED programs to do all. Moving company and crate rental. 2 programs into 4 classrooms. Renovate classroom for additional space, and an additional day for staff to move 4 staff. And that's $23,750. Does anyone have any questions about that? That will be going to Duval and Whitman. I know that it has been there in the past.
It has been in the past, and I think there's some advantages to this in that it does help consolidate services for those students as well.
Any questions? Okay, so now I think it's incumbent upon the committee to decide at this particular point whether we want to ask the town of, take a vote and ask the town of Hanson to have a special town meeting to appropriate $555,000 for this move. And we're also going to have to notify the town of Whitman about their costs and see if they're additional, or if they have a way of, their cost is much cheaper because they only share in the move with the Whitman-Hanson expense. They don't share in any of the Hanson expense, and they share in that on a 59.82 versus 40.18.
Yeah.
So their cost is going to be for the Whitman-Hanson move $256,189.60. They may choose to fund it in a different way and not have to have a special town meeting. Fred?
They've already appropriated 26,536.
Right, so the total's
And
282.
Hanson's already appropriated 17,824.
Yep,
I believe that's the balance with that deducted.
that's correct.
Bob?
So
Bob?
that's their cost. Mike?
If we do go ahead with a special town meeting, are we going after the $555,000, or are you going to go after what preliminary construction is before May town meeting?
You have to go for the whole amount.
You have to, or that's,
Well, it would make sense to, rather than break it up, because it would give you a definite answer of what you're going
if we're
to
going to
do.
do it? Okay.
You don't want to get funded for half, and then you have to put it in the back burner because you don't want to pay for the second part.
All right, are you confident with that 555 number?
I guess, Mike, that's a good question. The contractors that we've had out here in each trade, I've probably had 3 different contractors come out and give me 3 different estimates. What I put in the book and what I put on that schedule is, like I mentioned last week, I had one contractor come out, he was going to skim coat, he was going to tape the joints. The next contractor came out and plastered. It's going to be all plastered area, and that's the price we carried.
Okay.
So I feel very comfortable with it because I've been chasing these prices. In every discipline that's come out, it's been in the same area.
Okay.
Ernie, while you're up there, you already know my question. If they get funding at February special town meeting, how confident are you that that's enough time?
Well,
I know it's going to be tight. I mean,
Yeah.
is it a realistic time frame, or are we better off to ask the town to give us further out, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year?
Well, let me answer the way I look at the project, Mike, Robbie. If, depending on February special town meeting, if it's after school vacation, then we lose a precious week where whatever we're doing down here would have to be priced on off hours if we don't take advantage of that week
Gotcha. Okay.
that no kids are here. And I would say the same thing with the April school vacation. We've kind of talked around the new building here. It still has a lot of noise that's going to happen, ripping up the concrete and putting in those bathrooms. And the numbers I got, the prices I got, was working during the day, working not weekends, not any other time. So if that changes, then of course the price goes up, and then that kills the schedule.
Can we
So-
get pricing for that, just so that we can, so we have it? So we can, when we're sitting with the town of Hanson, town of Whitman, say, look, here's if things are going really well time-wise, but otherwise, if we've got to go to second shift work or weekend work, here's what the price difference is.
I can ask for that price difference. Ours is all rate job, prevailing wage.
Right.
So for the masonry work or for the concrete work, that person would be paid out of, on the rate, it's about $54 an hour. So I would just multiply that by time and a half.
Okay.
And that would be the easy calculation that I would use.
Okay.
But to answer your question as far as the schedule, Robbie, if it's if we're able to get the funding before the February school vacation, I feel comfortable that we can achieve the preschool here prior to or just about the end of school year.
Okay.
That doesn't say that the Indian Head School bathrooms can be done in that same time frame, because that has its own complications.
Right, its own issues.
Right. And that we have to uncover that. First off, we have to do, and I had two contractors out last week, abatement contractors, and the question they have, is it going to be done during the work week, or is it going to be done at nights and weekends, or, so those numbers are going to change. So I've asked for both on those.
Well, and I'm just curious, just because listening to the town administrator, if we're able to have the second set of numbers only so that if we have to expedite that time frame that they're working, say, double shifts, they can say to the town, look, it's going to cost X amount more for Indian Head School if they have to go to, say, double shifts or start working weekends in the summer, so you can achieve that September time frame versus we're going to need 6 more months, and I'm not sure what the cost would be for the town to keep McQuon open that 6 more months, if you know where I'm going with
I
that.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, just to,
So what is
Just
the
so-
balance?
just so
Well, to keep McQuon open for 6 more months, it's going to cost this amount of money, or to accelerate the project,
Right.
weekends and nights,
The
it's going to
deadline.
cost this amount of money,
Yeah.
so does that equal out?
Right, right, and that's kind of what I'm looking for, because that's been my concern for the last year, as most people know, is.
Yep,
just
and we
that
appreciate
Timeline,
that.
because of, you know, the students.
Then was
and
kind of
things
mean
like
what
that.
Mike wanted. He wanted the numbers to see, you know, if we had to,
Yeah,
they're looking
I've got
to,
Ally before.
yeah, they're looking to get that deadline in, so.
Keep in mind, Robbie, though, where if we have a special town meeting, we can't give them two sets of numbers. We
No,
either-
I'm talking for the selectmen, whether we meet with them next week or the following week, to
Yeah.
say, look, here's kind of where we're at, and we're gonna have to pick a number. I mean, right now it's 555, but if we have to add another, I'm just throwing out a number, 100,000 onto it, or whatever it is, to make sure we meet that September deadline, or is the town, if we can't necessarily make that deadline, are they okay going until January?
Mhm.
Which, I know the staff wouldn't want to do, that everybody want to open up fresh.
Get it done and get
In
it over.
September, which I agree with, absolutely. But I don't want to, I'd rather be open and honest and say, look, this is
Yeah, I agree.
a tight timeline, and here's just kind of the cost differences.
There's
'Cause it may
vari-
be- Yeah, it may be
there's
cheaper to
vari-
say, yeah, accelerate it, work double shifts, whatever, you know, I don't know.
Ally?
I just have kind of a question more so for Ruth, I think. With all the construction noise and whatnot that could potentially be happening in the springtime, what about MCAS testing,
It
AP
can't happen
exams?
when
and stuff
students
like
are
that?
there, and none of that work that is scheduled at Indian Head would happen when kids are at school. Can't, that's the concern.
Yeah.
And that was the ideal would be to do the preschool first, and to do it when high school's not in session.
Okay.
And that's why these breaks, February and April, really matter. And then really look at doing the Indian Head projects once school's out. And then get those finished, so they then have people available to do the others. But nothing's going to happen when kids, we're not going to, MCAS, we got to have.
Right, that's why I was just
No,
double
that would
checking.
not, there would not be a disruptive factor to that. And that's part of the concern, I think, that they're bringing up, that if we have to work off hours, it does become more expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fred?
Two things. Number one, Ernie, how thin do you see yourself and your staff spread in accomplishing this project? And should we perhaps consider, as a board, having a project manager or someone to oversee this?
Well, you might make lasagna different than me, and I use that as an analogy. Somebody's going to come in
I
here
just
as a
eat it,
project,
don't make it, but-
somebody's going to come in here as a project manager and see it differently. You know, I think we've gone through this whole thing, Fred, for the past 5 months, 5.5 months since April, when we started to talk about it. When I look at bringing a project manager in here, there's a significant cost to the project manager. And they're going to line up their own contractors. I think what we have is we have a resource of people, and I think I've mentioned a couple of names that we've used. We've got definitely good prices from local contractors.
And, you know, perhaps maybe we get an assistant to you or some.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, I know the amount of hours you put into this district.
Yeah.
You don't work 40 hours, okay? If something happens 2 in the morning, you're here.
Right.
You put in so much time, and with this project being so important to get everything done, how much can one person do if you spread that thin? You still have the normal summer schedule, the cleanups to oversee SJ, filters to be changed.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much that you do. You're always active, you're always busy. You know, is that something we should perhaps consider? And that's what I'm saying. And if I call it a project.
Could I just answer that? I'm very comfortable with my role, both roles. This is what we do, Fred. You know, if a project comes up, that we take on that project, just like Chad and his department. We'll get it done. But as far as the staff, we have a group of people that cut grass during the springtime and the fall and the summer. I was bringing those people inside, those staff members inside, to work on this project. So when springtime comes along, they go back to lining fields, cutting grass, all the stuff that happens outside. So if it goes beyond that time frame, I lose those important people to the outside, because that's just as demanding, just as important. So the schedule is really important from what Robbie had pointed out, that February break going into April. As far as April baseball, baseball's screaming they want to get on the baseball fields towards the end of March. We got to prepare those fields. So I'm saying the winter months, the way I really looked at this project, the winter months were important for us because we could use the staff that we have here to work on that project.
And can you clarify, there was supposed to be some work that we already have money allocated for,
Yeah?
and what that work is and the timeline on that?
Well, as far as I know, we were looking at ripping some carpet up in the computer labs.
Yeah.
We've not done that.
No, I understand, we haven't done anything
Right.
yet.
So the way we looked at it, there was some initial funding that we were going to go through, which both towns agreed to. Right now, that's not going anywhere. So when we get the green light, when all this gets clarified, then we have that money to work with on those projects.
So we're not touching anything until?
No, absolutely not.
Dan?
Yeah, just when I was listening to Fred, the only concern I would have during the February school vacation is miss the weather.
Yeah.
If we get slocked with, like we had a few years ago with snow after snow after snow.
Yeah.
We just don't want to make you too unavailable.
Yeah,
We have to
no.
take care of the district and not construction, and we prepared for something like that. And I know we're pulling your outside guys in,
Right.
but are we going to be able to put them back outside to do the snow removal?
Yeah, and that we're doing that now. If a storm comes along, we prepare for it. For the last 2 weekends, we've had the storms that never really came or never showed up, but we still prepared for it.
Yeah, no, that would be my concern is, you're all ready to go in, start the construction, get it done, then Mother Nature plays a cruel little joke to us for 4 or 5 days.
I mean, they're not building the walls, they're not saw cutting the floors, they're not, I mean, that's all subcontracted out, so I think,
Yeah.
let's just be clear on that.
All right, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure, our guys aren't going to be tied up, and then we have to take them out of there.
You got 6.
Yes, you just counted.
Okay. Any other questions on McQuon and Indian Head? The move, and like I said, I think it's incumbent upon this committee to decide whether we want to move forward to ask Whitman and Hanson, well, Hanson currently, to have a special town meeting. So it entertains some motion.
If I'm going to make, I'll make the motion, but I think we should also include Whitman. We're talking over $200,000.
We have definitely going to include Whitman, but they said they may not, from what I heard, require a special town meeting because the cost is much less.
Okay.
So,
And they have a
include
funding
it.
source.
Necessary.
Include it, Fred. Include it in your motion.
So with notification to Whitman.
In
and
Hanson.
In Hanson, to Whitman to have the option to request Hanson to have a special town meeting in order to fund this project at the recommended amount to be determined within the next week or so.
Second?
Second?
Michelle, can you read that back to me?
Just want to leave the amount open.
To notify
Yeah.
both Hanson and Whitman, Board of Selectmen, to hold a special town meeting in order to fund the closing of the McLaurin School and phases, and
Cost
amount to be
associated.
determined.
Could we add in there, it is the intent of the school committee to ask Whitman and Hanson
What?
in the middle of that? It is the intent of the school committee to ask the towns of Whitman and Hanson requesting,
Requesting a town meeting.
Yeah, to request special town meeting. Yep.
you all right with that?
I'm
Fred?
all right with that.
You all right with that as a second,
Yeah.
Mike? I just want to add in the school committee part, so it's not, they have clarification of who it is.
That makes sense.
Okay, discussion. Anybody from the committee? Brett?
I just feel that, my personal feeling is we should be on as fast of a track as possible while obviously getting the job done properly. And, try and get it done so that we can be in there for start of school. And perhaps we even want to look at moving the calendar back and starting school a week later, perhaps, something of that nature, you know, for next year. You know, if that would work to give that little extra bit of a cushion.
I think as we move on with the project, to tailor into what you're talking about, internally, we will look at that. We'll be getting reports from Ernie about how he's coming along with the project. And most importantly, we need to inform the staff and the public, the people that are actually, you know, that we take their children in every day, need to be fully aware how this project's going and the timelines on it and where we're going to be in case we have to move something.
Do you want to add February to that? That would.
I agree with you, I was going to say.
Yeah, 45 days.
Yeah.
It is, probably should be added to the motion also.
At the earliest possible moment.
Okay.
And then you can read it back to me before we go to vote.
January 2nd.
Can you read it back, Michelle, when you're done, please?
I'll clean it up a little better than this, but.
Okay.
Motion made by Fred Small, vote that the intent of the school committee is to request that both Hanson and Whitman Board of Selectmen hold a special town meeting in February 2018 in order to fund the McQuon School project closing, amount to be determined.
Should we make sure it's prior to the February vacation?
Well,
Well, 45 days would bring it to the week before February.
We just want to make sure.
And that would consider doing that if they can't hold a meeting until the first week in January, like after January 2nd. I counted.
No, that's what I was getting,
Yeah.
very, very close, I was thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday.
Thursday before the
It could be, you know.
As soon, if anyone wants to speak, this is discussion time, so now's the time to ask the questions. But as soon as I talk to Mike in the next few days, I will email the committee if there's a timeline issue on a do not reply email, so we're not deliberating. And that'll give you a timeline, and if we have to convene another school committee meeting in between Christmas and New Year's, I mean, I hate to do that, but it's a pretty important thing, so.
Christine, what percentage of this work, like the playground and some of the numbers that are up a little higher, have to go out to bid?
Anything over 50,000. Because I talked to the AG's office, actually, just to make sure that they didn't consider this one lump project, but they don't.
Fine with it?
We can,
Okay.
yeah, so we'll get quotes on everything, but the stuff that's over the 50,000 needs to be out to bid.
Okay.
So as soon as we get the appropriation, you know, we can write the specs and get them out, so. Or we can even make it prior to that if we, make sure that it's contingent on getting funding.
555.
Does the 555 include an Indian Head playground, sorry?
No, it does not.
Or surface or any, or
No,
fence?
that's all other additional considerations.
That's like 90, 60, 45 grand.
So that even with this getting done next year, there is no playground at Indian Head?
Unless we bring it to them in the spring, or we include it in this
Do it as a
555.
separate warrant article.
Yep.
No, there are things you could do, but.
Yep.
Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we're going to move to the vote on Fred's motion and Mike's second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. I believe that we have no more business to talk about on the McQuon closing update. We will keep everyone as in the loop as we possibly can, so keep in mind if there are any meetings that you see or anyone watching sees anything, check the website, check with the school committee. Don't hesitate to check with us or call us, because we want to keep everybody in the loop on the timeline so there's no confusion and the rumor mill doesn't get started that this isn't going or that isn't going. We want you to all be in the timeline. So thank you all for coming. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.
What's that?
Go to subcommittee meeting.